This is gonna take crackerjack timing, Wang.
Total concentration. You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we've got, Comic-Con at home going on right now, but you wouldn't really know it because everything's been drowned out with all the controversy surrounding Tom King. But I am going to talk a little bit about Endless Winter, apparently the next big DC Comics event coming at the end of this year. Also, there were some hints that Tom Taylor is going to be bringing back a franchise back to DC Comics. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And with me here to talk about that is my good friend Perch. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Great to have two fans talking about comics.
Absolutely. And if you're a fan of comics and you want all the best news, opinions, you want reviews, you should definitely consider subscribing to Thinking Critical YouTube. And if you like even more of that, you should hop on over to Perch's channel and subscribe there too. There's a link in the video description. In the last 30 seconds, there's going to be a big icon with his channel logo on it. You can click right on it, subscribe right to your channel, buddy. I highly recommend it.
Well, very kind of you. And we, I don't know, we both of us, I know from talking to you, both of us just really enjoy doing this and talking to all the people out here and discussing comics. We both love this stuff.
This is what we live for, brother. I want to talk about this DC news, but we do have to talk about like the big cloud hanging over Comic-Con at home. Basically concerning comic books, at least, there's no room to breathe for any of these stories because Tom King's accusations about Jay Lee have just kind of sucked all the oxygen out of the room. He made a fool of himself initially. Once we actually heard from Jay Lee after Tom King said everything was good, it made it seem about a billion times worse because all of our worst fears were essentially realized that all the things we thought could have happened to him essentially did happen to him simultaneously for a few hours before Tom King finally came back and people started retracting their stories, but it wasn't soon enough. A lot of damage was done, and there's a lot of stuff still spinning. People are still attacking Jay Lee based on what Tom King said.
No, it continues to go. And I think, we've talked about this before. I mean, the entire situation you've covered on your channel very, very well. I think it's a ridiculous, terrible thing that has gone on. And it's exactly what you said. It's sucked the news and the life out of Comic-Con. I mean, DC has to be pissed that all of the announcements, the things they teed up, the money they did invest, which they weren't necessarily planning to do this Comic-Con at home and these interviews. You go to any news site right now, and it's Tom King is the leading story. I go to Newsarama right now, and it was the top story as we're recording this. And that's, and so another piece of this that really deserves some criticism for how they handled it are the news sites. Newsarama, CBR, Bleeding Cool, they ran with this stuff. They're getting promotional copy. They're getting, in some cases, interviews with a lot of creators that you and I don't get. They're getting a lot of access to help cover and promote comics. And they also went all in on this with front page news stories about Tom King. I mean, you and I, we do, YouTube channels. We cover the commentary around it. I don't know about you. I don't have Marvel or DC knocking at my door, offering me exclusive interviews with people or promo comics to review and everything else. Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con is the event of the year. It shouldn't have gone like this.
They did put this together quite last minute, and I'm sure DC had to stop working on several projects just to get their products out there and get some promotion out there, because there really just isn't enough opportunities for where comic books are kind of at the forefront. And even at San Diego Comic-Con, it's not, but at least they get covered. To waste this valuable resource that they have to finally get an opportunity for people to hear what they've got offering in the future, just so much. Just such a waste, man. Just such a waste. And then obviously all the harm done to Jay Lee is just breaks my heart, man.
It was not necessary. This was a not necessary feud that got started for reasons that did not make any sense. And regardless of what you think about one side or the other side, this was a completely unnecessary ever and absolutely unnecessary this week.
Couldn't agree more with you. Let's cover some of the information that we have. I have two stories I want to talk about. The first one is this mysterious event that's going to come out, I believe, in December. It's called Endless Winter. Now, in my head, it's going to be one of three things. We know that there is a character in DC Comics called Endless Winter, kind of obscure. I think she might have replaced her daughter's brain with her brain because she didn't want to grow old. Maybe she flayed someone's flesh so she would never grow old, and she's certainly a very villainous character, but certainly not big enough probably to warrant, a big DC Comics event. Endless Winter, kind of makes me think Mr. Freeze. But, kind of recently, if they're ever showing Mr. Freeze as not being a bumbling idiot, it's in a very sympathetic light. Whenever he's being villainous, he seems to be defeated quite easily. So I'm not even sure if that one fits. But the one thing, the idea in my head that fits for this event, obviously this is all speculation, we don't have information, is this is going to be the fallout in the direction following DC Comics Death Metal, Dark Knight's Death Metal, to where Endless Winter will be the follow-up event, like the new status quo. And if that's the case, I feel like we've been in enough hopelessness and darkness in DC Comics that I find that would be depressing.
Yeah, that would. And you may be right. The strange thing about this, the timing doesn't quite line up. I mean, Death Metal is really wrapping up in January, and it's supposed to be February that we get the new status quo based on the timing of how the issues come out. So if it is the follow-up, it's coming slightly early, but then we don't know if there's alpha issues or who knows. It could be. We also don't know if some major event happens in Death Metal that really sets all this up. The speculation, and I couldn't tell whether it was news sites kind of speculating on this or is actually said clearly, was that this is sitting within Justice League. And some sites were calling this an event, and some sites were calling this an in-comic storyline. So it could be just as simple as a storyline within Justice League that's 2 to 3 months long. Maybe it crosses over with Justice League Dark, which has its own storylines going on. Maybe it's where they bring people together to face some kind of mystical threat that creates winter. I'm not sure. I'm with you. We don't know enough about it. I don't think it's Mr. Freeze either. I think you're right. They've been painting him more in a sympathetic light. He actually just had a storyline fairly recently in Detective Comics, so it'd be kind of surprised to bring him there again. That's my guess. Again, like you, I'm just speculating, but my guess is this is a kind of the last thing we see out of Justice League and that line of comics before things are rebooted or changed following Death Metal. But we'll see.
Well, so Justice League would seem like an odd fit for me too. Obviously, Scott Snyder was the Justice League writer for quite a while until recently. Robert Venditti took over for a very short term. He left to go take his dream project. I think Robbie Williams is writing it right now, and we know Scott Williamson is going to come over and write it for another short period to coincide along with Dark Knight's Death Metal. Do they really have a writer that's setting up a big event on Justice League? Do you think it's Williamson?
I would have a hard time. Again, the timing is strange to me. That's the part that's weird. If they had announced this as coming out in February, I'd say, okay, well, maybe this is Williamson or maybe it's Venditti doing their dream project. This is what's kicking it off. But the fact that it's in December is also odd for just a number of reasons, because you'd think all of DC's attention will be on kind of marketing the finale to Death Metal, which will be right in that kind of December, January timeframe. That's where all effort should be. So you have this thing kind of living off on the side. So it is a strange thing. I mean, the best I can think of, like I said, is just much like Venditti's brief storyline in Justice League. This is a brief storyline there. But if that's the case, why promote it this way at Comic-Con? It's a lot of promotion for a brief storyline. So it's a mystery, and that's I'll give it that. Of the other things that we've been talking about with Comic-Con, it's nice to have something that's a genuine mystery we can speculate about as fans. That's fun.
Also, it's nice that DC Comics somewhat listened to us. We did say, hey, DC, if you have future plans, you better get out, get in front of it, get the word out before people start spoiling it and kind of twisting, what the event or the future status of DC Comics is going to be, and they kind of start ruining it for you, and you have to go back and do a bunch of damage control. So it feels like maybe they listened to us and try to get it out early, but I'm with you. I'm perplexed, but we will unravel this mystery, Perch.
Yeah, we will, and I think it'll be fun to get there. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's there. I will say, assuming this is not another event and DC's not copying Marvel, just having multiple events collided all over each other, I like the fact that increasingly, I think we're about to talk about it. DC is showing signs that there's going to be different corners of their universe for different fans. That you don't, if you don't happen to like Death Metal, you're going to be able to have this over here, or this over here. If you don't like the core Batman line, then you're going to be able to have White Knight. And just, I like the fact that they're giving lots of options to fans. And maybe this is just another one of those.
So speaking of what you just alluded to, Tom Taylor has been sending out some tweets during Comic-Con at Home, kind of alluding to the return of Injustice I think his tweet said, it could have went better. Batman had the big eye with the Injustice kind of logo, or the Injustice font eye that makes people think that we're getting Injustice. I believe it would be Volume 3. Obviously, is Tom Taylor like the new guy in charge of anything dystopian future in DC Comics?
It feels like it. It definitely does, and I think this makes complete sense if you're DC and you looked at how first of all, Injustice did well for them. By all stretch of the imagination, it did well. I think there's still plenty of interest in that universe, that character, that Elseworlds kind of story. And Taylor did a good job with it. It's what put him on the map in a lot of cases for Big Two Comics. And then you look at the success that Sean Gordon Murphy had with the White Knight universe, saying you can actually have an imprint. You can have this other world go on. You can make spin-offs, and you can make a lot of money off of it. And Deceased is right there too as another one where it's another line. It's something to tap into. So DC, this one I think is much safer to call. This is Injustice coming back. The font and everything else, the writer. Having Tom Taylor kind of run with an Injustice world there where he gets to maybe curate some creators he likes and put out some comics, it's the smartest thing in the world for them.
Obviously, he's also got his event that's going to be going on over at Marvel Comics, where it's another dystopian future. We lost the power. I mean, Iron Man's lost a leg. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, it is. He is the. Maybe it's something in Australia. I don't know, but he is a dystopian. He's carved that territory out for himself. Tom King Tom King has a touchy-feely Batman. He's got the dystopian universes.
He certainly got a better feel for these kind of stories and settings than he had for like Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, his take on X-Men and stuff like that. But which really turned him off to me as a writer. But I finally checked out Deceased. I was blown away. I'm a huge fan now. It's maybe my favorite series right now at DC Comics. It's my favorite kind of corner of the universe, as you call it. I just think it's done. It's fleshed out so well. So I am interested in a new Injustice. Certainly interested in what he's doing over there at Marvel as well. But like I said, it's just too bad there's not a lot of coverage on this stuff right now because, like I said, there's just no air for it.
There's no air for it. No, exactly. And it's a shame. Hopefully now we can, this can come to kind of an end. I don't know. If I'm DC, I'm pissed that it went this direction. I think they did have some interesting things to announce. As we just talked about, I think if DC now with their marketing department comes back and says, here's the lineup of what DC looks like post Death Metal. We're going to have a core universe. We're going to have the White Knight universe. We're going to have the Deceased universe. We're going to have the Injustice universe and maybe other, the YA line and just a nice streamlined, here's where things are sitting. That's going to do well for them. It's a smart play, and hopefully the focus can go there.
And obviously we do have DC fandom happening in the future, which is kind of DC's own version of a virtual Comic-Con where it's going to be all of DC's, movies, television, streaming, comic books. So maybe they were holding a little bit back there. So that could have worked out in their favor, but can't wait to see that one. Obviously we'll be covering that here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hopefully there's a little bit more news that's still coming out of this thing. Obviously it's, we're past the traditional window for San Diego Comic-Con, but more hopefully comes now that we're doing this at home bit and it's stretching out. So I'm hoping for some good announcements, things to look forward to.
All right, Perch, is there anything else you needed to say? We're kind of coming up to the end of the video here.
No, it's fun talking the news for you, and let's see what happens. So thanks again for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you for joining me. And if you enjoyed Perch's stylings here on Thinking Critical, here in a few seconds, you're going to have an opportunity to subscribe to his channel, and I definitely recommend it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.